Welcome to the AQA YouTube channel. To navigate through the video, you can select specific chapters or subjects of the video. Enjoy watching and remember to subscribe.
So just to begin formally by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, work and play. Where I am, it's the Wurundjeri people. I'd like to pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Pay respect to the people, their culture and traditions. So thank you for joining us today on our webinar about getting out and about now that we can again. And I'll hand over to Naz Erdem, our MC today.
Thanks very much, Sel. So welcome again, everyone, to today's webinar. So today's webinar is called Getting Out and About, and what we mean by that as restrictions is and everyone starts to live their normal life like they were 2 years ago, I guess. So we've got like some great panelists today. We've got Shelley Earl, who's a recreational specialist, Emma O'Brien from AQA Victoria, Ryan Smith, Dave Jacka, Brian Fitzpatrick from Mobility Plus, Emily Quattrocchi, and Susana Valdes. And I think we'll start by doing a quick intro where we come from. A lot of people probably don't recognise who we are. We've got different roles. I'm from AQA Victoria and I've got lived experience of spinal cord injury. I think we'll go to, I'm looking at my screen, everyone probably sees different people in different arrangements, but Brian, do you want to just talk about you and your role at Mobility Plus?
Sure, thanks Naz. So my name is Brian Fitzpatrick. I've now been at Mobility Plus, this is my 10th year, so the last 10 years has flown by. So my role here is national sales, and where I look after Victorian sales and our agents interstate. For those of you who don't know a great deal about Mobility Plus, we're a 40-year-old family business started by Danny O'Neill and his wife Anne 40 years ago. Danny was involved in a motorbike accident, ended up in a wheelchair, and as you can appreciate, 40 years ago, most of the wheelchairs then were very heavy, clunky, not very attractive looking chairs. So Danny decided to start making his own. So similar to most small business stories, started off in his own garage, and then as the years have gone on, we've moved on to bigger and better factories as time goes on. So we custom build both day chairs and sports chairs in our factory here in Fairfield. So I'm in a chair myself. I have spina bifida and so have reduced mobility from that. So I use the chair mainly certainly for work and social. I still walk a little bit at home, but I am heavily involved in a number of wheelchair sports programs as well, which I'll talk about today. So as I mentioned, all our chairs are custom made. We do have a couple of off-the-shelf items as well, but predominantly, they're custom made to suit the client, to suit both their clinical and physical needs to have that personal wheelchair, whether it be a day chair or a sports chair. In addition to that, then we also do various power assist options to go onto those manual wheelchairs, from tri-ride, front power assist, to smooth, to smart drive, to e-motion wheels. We cover the whole range. We're also involved in paediatric products, so we do a full program of those. We do a recreational range of products, including trikes and bikes. We also do vehicle modification work, so from hand controls to lifts, to tie-down points, things of that nature. And we also do a manual handling program as well, so we do floor hoists, pool hoists, ceiling hoists, things of that nature. So not only from a sales perspective, but also after sales service as well. And last but not least, but you will have seen a number of our wheelchairs around a lot of the airports. We've been manufacturing wheelchairs for the airlines for a number of years, both the wide terminal chair and also the narrow chair that goes on board. And I suppose those chairs also leads themselves into today's topic of getting out and about after COVID, and particularly today when the first lot of international flights are coming back to Australia. So I think that's a pertinent point. So that's me in a nutshell.
No, thanks very much, Brian. I was also going to remind people what airports are. You know, a lot of people probably forgot what airports are, but it's for people that want to travel internationally over water, usually. So, Emma, can I go over to you? So, Emma's from AQA Victoria.
Yes, thanks, Naz. Yeah, so my name is Emma. I work for AQA. I've been with AQA for maybe 2 years now. My role is a community engagement role. So I work with a bunch of different services at AQA, so an allied health team, support coordination, and then also supporting the division that manages all of our disability support workers, and then a couple of the projects that we have going at the moment. So Wheelchair Skills Living Well project. So lots of touch points, but I am, I guess, first and foremost an OT, and that's probably the cap that I'll be wearing for today's conversation.
Thanks, Emma. Emily, over to you.
Hello, I'm Emily. I'm a T4 para, and I live regionally in Victoria, and yeah, that's me.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Emily. Dave, can we call you Dave? Dave Jacka?
We can.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Should change my name on my screen. But good day, everyone. Hope everyone's well. I'm Dave Jacka. Well, I guess I've been in a wheelchair for 35 years. Obviously lived experience. I had a motorbike accident back in 1988 where I broke 5th vertebrae in my neck, so I'm a C5-6 complete quad. And from there, I got back into employment, started engineering, and then moved into the project management area, managing construction projects. And then eventually took a redundancy and decided to do my own thing, where I've written a book, and I like to get out and do a bit of adventuring. I'm a pilot, flown solo around Australia, paddled the Murray, and hand sold up to Broken Hill. So I guess my view is that even though you have we have a disability, it shouldn't really. I don't think they should necessarily stop you from doing some of the things that you want to do in life. And I guess I believe that by trying to get support of others and doing things differently, solving problems, and to overcome the barriers, can help enable you to get out and do some of the things that we enjoy doing in life, like getting out after COVID.
Exactly. Thanks, Dave. And Dema.
Hello. I've been working in rehab for about 28 years now, based at Royal Talbot, which is part of Austin Health. Prior to that, I worked in community disability sector. I'm a recreation therapist, and our primary role has been working with people who are going through rehab to help them reconnect into meaningful activities in the community, which means getting out and about and being involved in the community as much as doing things at home. So I also wear a cap, another cap that I work with the AQA peer support team. We have a peer support program that supports people from inpatient phase right through to the community, and we've combined our resources between Austin Health and AQA, hence the logo. But today I'll primarily be wearing my recreation therapist hat and chipping in with any comments that might be relevant to helping you get involved in meaningful activity.
Thanks, Shell. And over to Ryan Smith.
Hey there, my name is Ryan. I started a blog. I'm a wheelchair user for about the last 10 years or so. I started a blog around travel and getting out and about 5 years ago, called Free Wheel Weekends. That has kind of grown into from a passion project into a kind of a consultancy. I'm studying to be an access consultant to get my diploma. So access is a more than a passion, I suppose. But yeah, I like to share my experiences of getting out and about, and hopefully people can get some tips and hints about doing the same thing. So that's me.
Thanks, Ryan. And Shelley, bit of an intro from you, please.
G'day. So I'm Shelley Earl. I'm a community-based recreation specialist. G'day, Sal. How you doing?
Good.
And so my job, I think Sal was talking about working with in the rehab setting and supporting people to get out and about sort of when they're in rehab to sort of apply that once they're out of rehab. I guess I'm already out in the community, so people that I tend to work with are people who've been out in the community for a little bit and for one reason or another haven't been able to make those connections in the community and get into sports and leisure and rec and do what they want to do. So, you know, I see very few Dave Jackas of the world because they're already out there, but I guess my job is to sort of bridge that gap between, but many people have got the skills and they've got almost the know-how, and it's just sometimes it's just a sort of unlocking a few things or helping people with some nitty-gritty practicalities of how something can occur and breaking down often a lot of nonsense to be able to help people to get out there. You know, I have rules that I have to follow, but somehow be able to bridge that gap between what the rules are and what the reality is, and see if I can create some pathways for people that are rooted in actual reality of what life is like for people with spinal cord injury, rather than than otherwise, shall we say.
Yeah, no, thank you, Shelley. And want to speak to you later. The great, I know you've been doing some work with Emily, and it'll be great to sort of see what that involved. Susana, over to you.
Hi, I'm a spinal patient. I've had my spinal injury since 95. I've been around, raised a couple of kids, and joined a group of dance and roll, and travelled around overseas, and went to Queensland in a car. So yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you, Susana. I'm not sure if people out there, if they read The Age, there was an article, the title was How Accessible is Melbourne for People with Disabilities. I know, Ryan, I think you were interviewed as part of that article. I reckon it'll be good to just start off in that because, you know, wheelchair, to get around in a wheelchair, of course, access is super important. And what we think access is, I think Melbourne's great for access, but of course, you know, a lot of things could be done better in that area. I thought it might be worthwhile just touching on that article and what you thought about it, Ryan.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Naz. I think everybody would, pardon me, I think everybody would agree that accessibility is a bit of a misnomer. Like there's no such thing, like what's going to be accessible for me is going to be not accessible or not completely accessible for somebody else, and vice versa. So I think as soon as you start looking for accessibility, then it becomes a very subjective thing. So, and look, I am in agreement, Naz. I think Victoria and I think Melbourne, we're lucky from a topology point of view, from the state of the physical environment. We're pretty lucky. It's relatively flat. We do live in a pretty lucky, fortunate Western democracy whereby things like Australian standards are put into place to see that people with disabilities are thought about and considered under the legislation when it comes to new buildings and actually renovations of buildings, and of course public transport and education and healthcare sector. So accessibility means different things for different people. Having said that, I think, pardon me, I think we need to remember that environments can be discriminatory. They can be unintentionally tricky and a bit nasty, and they can be ill-considered, let's say, right? And so they can reach the Australian standards, and you know, builders can sign them off, but they're still in some cases not altogether usable and not altogether user-friendly. So I think what we need to remember that is that anybody who closes the door behind them and heads out, that takes a lot of courage to do that to begin with. So forget about the planning, forget about everything that happens after that. Kudos and a big high five to anybody who closes the door behind them on the way out, because that takes some bravery. We all know, everybody's got horror stories and stories about how, you know, they had an awful time and somebody said something was accessible and it wasn't, and that, you know, you feel awkward, and there's all of that whole awful sort of stuff that potentially can happen, obviously. And I hope that everybody's got those really lovely stories of had, you know, really beautiful, wonderful experiences when they head out too. But I think it's just worth mentioning from the outset that it takes some courage to actually get out the door and go and put yourself out there. So to anybody who does that, congratulations. And I hope that all of the wisdom and the knowledge we have in this session is going to allow you to take some notes and tidbits and some wisdom of the group, let's say, so that when you do decide to do that, you can do it armed and with some confidence and with some kind of strength behind you.
Yeah, no, very good points, Ryan. I think that's really important. You know, it does take courage, but also, you know, a lot of people 2 years ago had lots of courage and they were getting out and about and going wherever they wanted. In the last 2 years, you know, people have been fighting to go out. So whatever problem solving they had, it's probably gone out the door. So people have got to get that confidence up again, you know, and that means leaving your home is really scary for a lot of people, or scary again. You know, again, we've got lots of issues that we've got to deal with if we go too far from home. If we, you know, we've still got to think about if we have like some of those health issues like bowel or bladder issues, you know, they stop us from going anywhere. So it'll be great if we can talk about that a little bit later on too, how people prepare or how they subconsciously avoid thinking about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of resources out there, and there is so many places, and it's such a great community that, you know, everybody here, everybody online, everybody in social media, and everybody face to face is, from my experience, very generous with their knowledge and very generous with their tips and with their advice, I guess. So, and that's I guess why we're here to kind of smooth that surface so that we can, you know, get that confidence and actually get out and be seen and enjoy the environment.
Yeah. Dave, can I go to you? Just want to see your thoughts. I know you're a very active person, but I know there's a lot of things that you wanted to do in the last 18 months or whatever, and that you had to postpone. And when you do arrange something, because it takes a lot of work to organise an outing to go somewhere, and a lot of the time you can't do it yourself, you know, you're reliant on people to go with you or meet you there or make sure that, you know, a building is open or whatever that may be. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think with the whole of COVID over the last 2 years, you know, we've been in a state of flux where you've had, I guess, some restriction been eased, we've had a bit of freedom, then it's been taken away, and we've got it again, and then when we start opening up, we think, great, we can actually go out and make some plans. And then when we do have any plans, like, you know,
I think we've lost Dave.
We've lost Dave, yeah. Hopefully he comes back. And Dave, if you can hear us, sorry, but you're going to have to repeat yourself, whatever you said the last 60 seconds. But while we're trying to get Dave, Dave, you're back. Sorry, yeah, we missed you for the last minute. So Can you start off from where we lost you? You probably don't know where it is, but have a guess.
Don't know where that was, but anyway, look, I guess yeah, with the whole COVID, with the I guess being the state of flux and trying to plan things has been really quite difficult, even for myself. You know, I wanted to go to the Yuyangs a few weeks ago, and I thought, you know, I had it all planned out, whether it was going to be great. Got my support rider, because being quadriplegic, pretty much most of the things that I want to do, I've got to have support from other people. And so I've, you know, gone out and have a lot arranged, and then what happens 2 days beforehand, my support worker gets COVID. So
Dave, before you go on, Yang, so you went there for a reason. Can you just tell everyone why you were going there in the first place?
Oh yeah, so I was going to the Yuyangs to do some hand cycling. I've got a Lasher, so all-terrain hand cycle with para assist. Main reason why para assist was having quadriplegia. I don't have the strength to be able to crank it up hills and over rough terrain. So I was going to go to the Yuyangs, where they've got some really good beginner mountain bike trails, and so it suits my hand cycle really well, because the bends aren't too tight, and they've got nice flowing trails where so you know, so it's really well suited, and you can get some really good riding there, and so yeah, so you know, for me, it's had it all planned out. My support worker, he got COVID, so you know, I think that we can make our plans. I think, you know, when we have a disability, our life revolves around having to plan things. I guess it's also in this whole time of a bit of uncertainty in our lives at this point in time. Then instead of you know, having to plan everything and be disappointed when things don't go to plan, we need a bit of a backup. So I think from my perspective, you know, when things like that don't go to plan, then have a bit of a backup. So for me, it was just going out, instead of doing that big trip, it's going out and just going hand cycling locally. And so being able to still get out and enjoy myself, and going locally, which meant I actually didn't need another support rider. I could just go where I knew the trails were going to be quite accessible, and that I could cope. And if I did get stuck, there's going to be somebody around who could actually back up my hand cycle and push me around a corner if I needed. So so I think, you know, right now it's great to be able to get out, but when our things don't go to plan, you know, think about what else you can do so you can still get out and get some exercise, have some enjoyment, so you can actually do some of the things that we want to do in life.
Fantastic, Dave. Thanks for that. Now I want to ask Emily. So you said you live in regional Victoria, so you know that's very different to central Melbourne, of course. Depending on the area, some places probably doesn't matter, but you know, to get around for you, I mean, do you use any like assistive equipment? I know that you probably did, but you know, with restrictions, you probably use them less than you'd like to. So can you talk about that, access, and what sort of activities you want to get back into, or you've started to get back into?
Yeah, sure. So because your roller's not the flattest area and it doesn't always have footpaths, it's not the easiest to get around. So I have something called a klaxon, which is an attachment, and it turns you into a little motorbike, which makes it a lot easier to go around. You can go up to 15 kilometers per hour. The speed limit, although for me is 10. I'm only allowed to go 10 legally. But yeah, so that makes it a lot easier to go around and catch up with friends and do things like that. And what I've been wanting to do is do basketball and try tennis and try different sports, because I'm not sure what my sport is. So I've been wanting to try different sports. So I even tried horse riding. Shelley organised for me to try horse riding for the first time, which was pretty amazing that I did it. Can't believe I did it. And yeah, so I'm wanting to get out there and try different sports, and Shelley's helping me do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, what about Shelley? Can we ask you in like again? How do people approach you? I mean, you know, Emily approached you, and I don't know if she suggested I want to do horse riding, or you suggested to her, and then you went and found the location. How does that work?
Yeah. So in Em's case, Em was very direct about wanting to try it. She knew that I was pretty involved in riding. I'm a provider as well as my normal job. I'm a provider with Equine Pathways Australia. So I work with people, anyone sort of seeking a pathway from that RDA level through to Paralympic level, because this will be no news to many of you. But one thing that sport often lacks when it comes to wheelchair sport is any kind of pathway. 1 minute you're introduced to a sport, next minute you're representing your country. There ain't no middle ground. And last time I checked, if I turned up to pay for my local club, I wasn't then required to pay for Australia in the following week. You know, so it can be a little ridiculous. And so with riding, there was the same thing. And RDA we're huge supporters of, and they have a wonderful program, but they're overstretched. And so we have this pathways program there, and Em knew about that. And so through Equine Pathways, I was able to set that up. But I guess to answer your question, Naz, is like just to like directly, is that it's a mixture. So if I'm working with somebody, I'm really trying to work with them as a partner to them, as opposed to the know-it-all. I'm far from the queen of recreation, always learning, and you know, Sal's been around for a long time too, so learning from all sorts of people, but most of all learning from the people that I work with. So very often people will say, I want to do A, B, and C, and really what's lacking for them is the connection, like how to make it happen. They know they've got the idea, and then my job is to work with them to make it happen. And often it's not that they might even have the contact, but all the things that you listed, and Dave even, you know, talking about, you know, as well set up as you are, at the last minute your support worker got COVID. Yeah. So for other people it may not be quite that, but there's a range of other things, like they're a real go-getter, but they actually don't have a very good support program at all. Like they've got really crap support program, and they may be able to do A, B, and C. So I'll come along. It's not my job to be the queen of recreation in that case. It's my job to go, well, this person can't do this sport because their support program is hideous. I'm going to shake some trees and make this support program good so they can do sport. So my job isn't just to focus on the sport or the activity or whatever, it's actually the pathway to it. And if that pathway is not clear, my job is to get in the tractor and clear the pathway, yeah? So for people that know what they're doing, that's often the sort of job that I do for them. For other people, I entirely create the idea. And that might be as like people don't know what they want to do, and we have, you know, there's questionnaires and there's all these sorts of things, but basically nothing replaces spending time with someone, having an understanding, very good understanding of their background, and having a very good understanding of how they're wired. How do they think? What makes them tick? What turns them on? So for somebody who was previously playing a very outcome-driven sport that they could control the outcome with, that was very strategic type of sport, but they can no longer do that sport from a physical point of view, the chances are they're going to be extremely good at a range of other strategic-based sports that are much more accessible to them. And they may not make the connection at all between those sports, because one might be highly physical and one may be something, a game of strategy, like, you know, like a lawn bowls, or if someone's got a high level injury, like a shooting or like a darts or like a thing like that, anything that the person can control the outcome themselves and has to use strategy. Yeah. So my job in that case is to think outside what the actual thing was that they were doing and to make some connection between the two. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks very much for that. I want to just move on to, there's quite a few things I want to touch on, but thought it'll be worthwhile to get onto safety. You know, I want to talk about wheelchairs and, you know, vehicles, and also international travel, for example. I know a lot of people are hanging for that, including myself. But Brian, just wanted to go to you now. I mean, a lot of our equipment, like our sports chairs or day chairs or power chairs, all that sort of stuff, we wouldn't have been using it as much as we normally would have liked to in the past. And because of that, I think it's really important that people, you know, check their equipment out before it falls apart, you know, because having stuff laying around or not using it as much as you would, when you start using it heavily again, things could break down or not work as well. So do you want to just talk about things that people need to look at to make sure that their equipment is working well? You know, things like tyres, you know, tubes and axles and all that sort of stuff.
Sure. I think in the last couple of years, we've all been starved of wheelchair sports, that's for sure. Many programs were halted, and I know from my own personal point of view, as I mentioned earlier on, that wheelchair sports is very important to me, both from a mental health point of view, but also from a physical point of view as well. I know I was probably one person that fell into that trap of putting on some COVID kilos because we all went to comfort food while we were just sitting around with nothing to do. And I think the most exercise we got was opening up the fridge or the pantry to grab something to eat. So because there wasn't a lot of other stuff to do. But Naz, you do raise some very important points about where we're now sort of pulling wheelchairs now back out of the garage or back out of the spare bedroom and start using them again in the different wheelchair programs that are available. But yeah, as you mentioned, you know, tyres is certainly one aspect. Make sure that not only the tread on the tyre is what it needs to be to be able to compete in that particular wheelchair sport that you're going to compete in. It will have deflated over time. It's no different to a bike tyre in that if it's not used, the tyre will deflate. So it's important that you get air back into that. If over a period of time you find that it's going flat pretty quickly, it means the tubes have probably perished in that time that the tube hasn't been used. So if you are able to change that tube yourself, get to your local place and get that done. It's also important that when you take the wheel off, and I've just got one here, and you'll notice then that we've got an axle that's protruding out through here, and that'll start to get a black film on there. So when that black film starts to get really thick, it'll just attract more dust, which means it's going to clog the bearings and won't rotate as well as it should. So just grab either a clean rag or a paper towel and just wipe that axle clean. You don't need to put any lubricants on there like WD-40 or CRC. All that will do is attract dust and then clog up the bearings again. All the bearings are sealed, so you don't need to worry about lubricating those. But it's important just to just wipe that clean so that it's going to work to its maximum. The other area of maintenance that's important is also the front caster, where it will get a build-up of hair fibres and carpet fibres and things like that over time. And what that will do is that those fibres will just wrap around the bearings, and that will prevent the bearings from being able to, again, rotate and perform to the best of their ability. So other parts of it, apart from the mechanical side of the sports chair, looking at tyres and bearings and casters and things like that, is your upholstery. Make sure that your backrest upholstery is up to scratch, seat upholstery as well. Make sure the cushion is right and it hasn't deteriorated. Generally, a cushion will last a couple of years, so before you need to replace that. So make sure that it's not getting past that use by date. There's been a mention of sort of different power assist options that are out there. It's important that when those items are not being used, that you still charge those on a regular basis. Those batteries need to be worked and they need to be charged again. If you're not using that piece of equipment, the battery will just deteriorate and lose charge, and you'll never get 100% charge back into that battery. So it's important that whilst you may not be using that piece of equipment for whatever the case may be, you may have had surgery and you know they're going to use that piece of equipment for a number of months, but it's important that you keep charge into that battery. Because what a lot of trap that people fall into is the battery will deteriorate, it'll drop a few cells, and when you go to charge it, the charge might show that the green light comes on and it's fully charged, but it's not fully charged to 100% because you've dropped a few cells. So it'll mean that the battery is now only charged to 80% or 70%. That's when you have people turn around and say, I'm not getting the same distance that I used to. And that's the reason why, is because that battery is no longer charging to 100% capacity. So it's always important to keep those items on charge. Not necessarily all the time. It's not good for transformers and things like that, where they can have a tendency to overheat. You don't want to leave things just on charge for 24/7, but you can set yourself a date or something like that, like the first of each month. I do that with my cycle that I'll use that's got power assist. Over the winter months when I don't ride it so much, on the first of each month, I'll pull the battery and then charge it. So you put regular updates in your phone or whatever the case may be, just to charge equipment on a regular basis. So I think the important thing is, as we're starting to find out now as the restrictions ease, that many wheelchair sports have opened up again. I know basketball is back on, badminton is back on, tennis is back on. Not sure about rugby, Naz, whether the rugby's up and running.
Well, it's happening starting this Friday, Brian, big competition.
Okay, good to know. And I know wheelchair AFL starts early April. So there's a number of programs that have already started up, and we're looking for players in all those different codes. So anybody who's thinking about getting involved in wheelchair sports, this is the time to do it. Contact AQA, get in touch with those guys at DSR, find out sort of where those wheelchair programs are, and come to there's a lot of come and try days that are coming up. Certainly get to come and try days where you'll get the opportunity to try 4 or 5 different sports. Emily, that might be one for you to come along to, where you can then try those different sports and see what interests you. So
thanks very much, Brian. And I know Ryan mentioned, it takes courage to close the door behind you, but in doing that too, pick up the phone. If you've got a question about an activity or a sport or something you want to do, travel, whatever it is, pick up the phone, call AQA or DSR or Shelly or anyone like that. I think it's really important to be able to pick up that phone and make that first move about wanting to do something, so you can find out the information you need to. It's not that hard to make that call and find out the steps that you need. Emma, sorry, I just wanted to go to you. We're talking about when people want to start going out and about again and they want supports. You can't just get carers on board again if you want to, other than get in and out of bed, for example. If you want to travel or do something on a regular basis, that could take a bit of time now, because just the workforce, I think, has changed too over the last couple of years. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, or any activities.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone has mentioned some really important things about having a really good support network. So being connected in with your communities, but also having hands-on assistance when and if you need it. Dave had a really good point there about how he had this weekend planned. It was your support rider. So I'm guessing it's someone who's been trained or has worked with you before. And because that person's not available, the activity couldn't go ahead in the way that you had planned. We're finding at the moment, with the increased numbers in COVID positive cases, it's really affecting the support worker industry across all areas. It's really hard to pick up casualised shifts or just ad hoc bits and pieces here and there, because everyone has had quite a significant amount of people calling in sick. Or precautionary calling in sick, waiting for their tests and things like that. So it's been difficult. It's been difficult for the industry, but it's been what we've learnt from it is there's opportunity there to negotiate and be flexible. So where you can get creative with your supports or with your agencies about when your support is provided. Sorry, I got distracted by Josh's little message in the box there. Yeah, so when you can get creative and draw upon, I guess, partnerships you've got with the people that you're working with, that's where you're going to get the most flexibility. From what I've seen, the people that are, you know, behind the scenes, filling the rosters, trying to resource the programs and things like that, they're trying really hard. They're doing their best with what they've got at the moment. So I think forward planning, a bit of patience, or like top-notch communication, are the three things that you want to draw upon there. And then maybe even considering, you know, who in your friends and family, who could potentially come and give you a hand. I've worked with people who have amazing community-based supports and they don't pay for any of it. It's the it's the person at the cafe, at the train station that they go to work, and then Traveller's Aid at Flinders Street. And there's a whole bunch of different community based options available. I mean, I just learned about an MWAT key the other day, a key that unlocks public bathrooms that you can just purchase. So pulling in those mainstream community supports and then supplementing that with paid formal supports might be a viable option for lots of people who are having difficulty in getting their old rosters re-established.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Emma. Yeah, some really good points there. Yes, sorry, go on.
Yeah, the thing I was just thinking about is because, you know, I'm having, you know, fairly high level quadriplegia. I'm really reliant on support, you know, not just to get me out of bed in the morning, give me help around the house, but any of my activities and adventuring that I want to do, I need support no matter what I do. So, which is really, really important. But when it comes to carers, and I think what I've found is that there is a limit of support around, the support workers available. But what I guess one way of looking at it is that instead of trying to find a support worker to do, you know, maybe your care and can then come out and do other things with you, just finding someone who wants to do one particular activity or one particular skill set to actually get them to actually help you. So you might have someone that comes over for a couple of hours to go for a ride with you, or once a week or something. And then you got someone else, another person who doesn't want to do personal care, but wants to come out and, I don't know, do a bit of gardening for you or whatever it is, you know, or help you out in the community, that sort of thing. So I tend to find that it's just trying to maybe you're finding some of those people who can just do those particular activities instead of trying to fill your whole, be able to be across your program. So yeah, I find that works quite well. And also, when I did a lot of my big adventures, most of the people that I got were just volunteers. I asked around, just trying to find anyone who was interested in coming out for a kayak or coming out for a ride. There's a lot of people around, so if you can't find support workers, ask around, and there might be someone who's willing to come down and go for a ride with you. You know, get out, enjoy the sunshine, and you know, they'd be quite happy getting a bit of food out of your pack for you and sticking it in your mouth or whatever you need. You know, so so think about, yeah, as Emma mentioned, you know, think outside the square and ask around. You'll never, you know, you'll be surprised who's willing to give you a hand.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Very true. Thanks, Dave. Got a question for Susana. I know Susana, she lives in regional Victoria as well, and I know she's been doing quite a lot online. A lot of the activities have gone online, like dance and roll, for example, but she travels a lot in her vehicle. Susana, I just wanted to ask you about that. I know you're probably going to complain, or everyone else is going to complain about the fuel prices, but things like maintaining your vehicle, you know, for those that haven't been using their cars that often, you know.
Yes, well, when I go out, I kind of have to make sure that I'm more prepared for the day and make sure that, you know, my tyres are okay, and make sure that where I'm going, that don't forget my mask, because now we're still wearing masks where we have to go. And when I'm out in the community, I really, you know, I was a little bit scared and a bit skeptical about, you know, going out in the real world. But it was nice that our dance and roll has started down back at Darabin, and we do that once a week down on Thursdays. So that's been a really good outing to get back into it and feel that you're, you know, quite comfortable to get around to everybody.
Sorry, I'll cut you off. Keep going. Susana.
Yes, I actually like, and I go out in the community. I've started to do my shopping, so that's really exciting to actually go out and do some shopping and feel that I don't need my carer to go out and do it and choose the things that she used to choose. I can actually do it myself now. I feel safe now that I've had your booster.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. Well, I was going to mention a lot of things are opening up. You know, like you said, dance and roll are meeting face to face again, but a lot of AQA's activities. You know, we've got community networks that are all around Victoria. We haven't been able to see each other face to face, and people have been hanging for it. But next month, in March, we're going to start meeting face to face again in Ballarat, Bendigo, you know, Shepparton, Geelong and Gippsland and all of that sort of stuff. So that's going to be fantastic. I know a lot of people sort of miss seeing each other and being able to punch each other as well. I think I miss that as well. You can't do that online. But Ryan, I want to move on to, you know, we talk about travelling around Victoria and around Australia, but today, Victoria started international arrivals sort of coming, but it's going to go the other way too. So we're going to be able to travel overseas. And I know you've done a lot of travel yourself. Is there any comments you can make about the safety of that? You know, is it safe to do that, and what that's going to look like? Should we still be wearing masks, and are the planes going to be chockers? You know, things like that.
Yeah, thanks, Naz. I just want to jump back really quickly. I think what we tried to do when we were sort of in downtime and in throughout the COVID lockdown was maintain a little bit of health, so that you know a bit of exercise, some stretching, we did some online sessions with Gym Possible. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. That's like a seated gym session, like cardio and whatnot, and obviously Rocca was doing dance and roll, so she had the cardio and the stretches going on. So I think, and it's probably just as true for you know, time outside of past COVID, post COVID, whatever it may be, but kind of maintaining your health as well, so that when you do decide to go out, you can go out longer and you can enjoy yourself more because you're kind of relatively fit, game fit if you want, Naz. So probably something to think about too. All of this is kind of intertwined, right? You've got, you know, diet, exercise and all the rest of it, but maintaining a little bit of that's going to mean that when you do go out, you can go out and have a better experience. Going overseas, or at least getting on one of those, what are they called again, Naz? I
think they're planes or aeroplanes.
That's it. Yeah. You know, yeah. How exciting, right? How exciting to get on the aero bridge, or getting that horrible lift again in the wing. You know, very exciting. I mean, I can't wait to do that, and hopefully we're going to be able to do that again soon. Look, again, it feels to me like it's a game of risk and everyone has their own sort of risk tolerance. Some people I know are going to hold back until COVID almost all but disappeared, so they could be waiting a while. Other people are pretty keen to get on the plane straight away, as long as they're triple jabbed, masked up, and maybe got a visor and all the rest of it. It's up to everyone's kind of you know, sense of risk. But I think just being prepared, like it's simple, isn't it? It's like making sure you're as prepared as you can possibly be. And as Dave said earlier, look, with just about everything, have a plan B. You know, what happens if you get stuck at the airport? What are you going to do? Walk, make sure you have. One of the things that Rocco let me know, which was a real kind of insight to me that I didn't consider, was make sure you've got some of your equipment with you in your carry-on, just in case luggage disappears and you're stuck, so that you do have those that equipment.
So that's things like catheters, medication, and all that stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Got a question here from Antonio. He wants to hear what people's experiences are in engaging with their community again. You know, I mean, footy's starting up again, for example, and I think they've got no limits on or crowd limits. Going out to pubs and clubs, you know, people, have they started sort of mixing with the community again, or are they, or as in we going to sit back a little bit? Anyone's thoughts about that?
I can step in here because I've working with a couple of people at the moment, and what's been really interesting is activity endurance. Because we've had 2 years, you know, watching Netflix and living inside our houses, not going anywhere. Tolerance has been a surprising experience for lots of people. They're just fatiguing quickly, probably not tolerating, you know, noise and things like that, and confidence as well. So a little bit more fearful, a bit more anxious about what's happening in the community. You know, are people getting too close to me? Will I be able to get into that building? What do I do about the bathroom? All of those questions are being, I guess, experienced from you know, from people who are really early on, from becoming wheelchair users through to people who are, you know, 25, 30 years in a chair. They're all, there's similar pillars there. And I think something that's been helpful to work on is just sort of grading those things. So starting off small and then working your way into it. Things like wheelchair skills has been good as well too, but just building confidence with more difficult or more unpredictable environments, and being able to exercise verbal independence. So telling people what you need, when you need it, how you'd like that delivered, so people aren't swarming or flocking. But that's from an OT perspective. I'd like to hear from, I guess, someone with lived experience in the room.
I just saw a couple of comments come in, Emma. So I just wanted to add to that, you know, a lot of people, our wheelchair skills are rusty as well, because we haven't been getting over grass or hills or anything like that. So, you know, it's important to get back into that. On our AQA, if anyone wants a refresher on wheelchair skills, you know, come and talk to us. Please, some people have mentioned their fitness has gone down. They've really noticed that their fitness has suffered. And some people have put on weight. You know, that's a real concern. I think that it's sort of a shame that COVID has caused that, but it's just a matter of getting back into routine. And, you know, I'd love to start something up where some of us can meet up to do some fitness stuff and talk to each other about losing weight and those sorts of options. But sorry, I interrupted again, Emma, but
No.
Anyone else have any comments on that?
You touched on something really important there. Our bodies have changed over the last 2 years, so sometimes backwards, sometimes forwards. But it will change the way that your wheelchair works with your body. So it might even be that if you're not feeling comfortable in the community, maybe you just need to check in with your OT or wherever you purchase the chair from, just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be based on how your body is now as well. You know, maximize that.
Yeah. Anyone else? Emily, I can hear you. I can hear you talking, but I can't hear you. I can see you talking, I should say.
Yeah, I was just going to say I had been a little because, you know, you're getting you can stay at home and get in a bit of a slump and you don't get out. So I'd struggled a little bit to start getting out, but then I started catching up with my friends, going to the pub, going out for dinner, going for lunches at the park, and it puts me in a better headspace when I'm out and communicating with people and socialising. And I try and stay outside because it's a nice weather as well, so it's a good chance to stay in the sun, and it's nice outside. So at the pub I'll sit out in the courtyard with my friends, and yeah.
Excellent, thanks, Shelly. So guys, just wanted to mention, like, this panel environment we're going to have for a few more minutes, and later, if you're happy, going to open the discussion to all the participants, so people who we can't see. So if they want to give us their suggestions or ask questions, we can do that. But quickly, I saw a question come through, and this one was to you, Brian. So someone got their chair from you many years ago, and they're wondering if you would have their script, their old script, because they're looking, this is John Kumaru, so he's looking at getting some really minor changes, but wants to make sure that it's based on his old script.
Yes, we will have his old script, Naz. That'll be in archive, and yeah, we can certainly get access to that. If John wants to replicate exactly the same chair that he had previously, yeah, we certainly recommend that he comes in so we can just view that chair, because over the years, whilst we've got our 5 different models of chairs, from folding chair then to 4 rigid frame chairs, aesthetically those chairs will change in design, not only for reasons of aesthetics but also for improved performance as well. So it's important that when a client actually says, I want the exact same chair again, we need to have that chair to see that, to just replicate that exactly the same. Because often a script that we may have will just be the specifics of dimensions and accessories that are on that chair. But when it comes down to the actual design, if the drawing's not part of that file, it may be a new design might be slightly different to the old chair. So it's important that that John comes in with that particular chair, so we can just double check that the design hasn't changed and that we're doing exactly the same as what John wants.
Excellent. And Emma, there's also a question to you saying they've got funding, NDIS funding. Are your services as an OT available even though you are employed at AQA? As with NDIS, I need quotes and OT assessments.
Yes, so AQA have 3 OTs at the moment. One with lived experience, so myself, who started in spinal maybe 6 years ago, and then Kim's our 3rd, and her specialty is complex home modifications and similar. So just jump on the website and submit an inquiry through the Contact Us page. It'll go directly to Mark, who's an OT. He'll give you a call and you can have a chat about what you're looking for and then go from there.
Thanks, Sam. Antonio's made a comment here. He's just actually returned from a trip to Europe, and he said it was very straightforward, no complications, but they want to see an international travel certificate saying that you've been vaccinated. And in Australia, if people don't know if they've been, all their vaccination records are kept on their Medicare app and MyGov, I think that is. So yeah, you need to make sure that you've got that before you can fly, because I think they make you show that to them. Someone mentioned they've got like a Apple Watch, and it helps with their weight because they can sort of see their activity, and it's NDIS funded. I'm assuming you can probably get it through TAC too, if that's the case. I'm not sure, but
that's not a necessity.
Oh, so you can't get it at TAC?
Not really.
Okay. So I'm just reading through some of the other comments.
I've been to the gym as well. I'm waiting for a clearance to go back to doing hydro as well. and it's been really good. Still a bit scared doing the QR and wearing a mask, but it's been really good to get back to gym.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's
Yeah.
getting back to normal again, isn't it? You know, when
Yeah.
you start doing stuff that you used to do and you want to continue doing.
Right.
Tim Marchinson mentioned, so he's from Solve Disability Services, I think they're called. So if anyone's looking for equipment modified, like they want something made for their sports chair or their day chair and it's not commercially available, get in touch with them because they will work with their engineers in trying to develop something specific for you.
So while you're looking at questions, I might just double back on the question that Antonio asked about accessing pubs and clubs and I guess local community activity and picking up some of the points that other people have made. I think, you know, a few of you have spoken about getting your fitness back and be able to get out and about, and you can even think about getting out and about as a graded thing rather than going full on, let's go overseas to Europe straight up. Let's start by meeting with some friends at the local park or the local pub. You know, so thinking about the people and places that are near you that you could connect with and just make it a nice, easy transition into the community. There are lots of public spaces that, you know, we use pretty well, that are starting to have public events as well that you can start to, you know, try yourself out and go there for maybe an hour or so. Think about neighbourhood houses, community centres near you that offer a range of activities. So for those people that aren't into sport, there's lots of learning opportunities, art, craft activities as well, or just activity groups that get you mobile. I think Susana mentioned Dance a Roll, which is a great example of just having fun, but you're also gaining fitness and moving. And there's lots of ways to do that, even joining, dare I say, a walking group that you can socialise with people, be in nature and start to get yourself active. So it's really just following your curiosity and thinking, you know, what would I like to try and how can I try it locally? And then that might be a springboard to other things. Talking to friends is a really great way of generating those ideas as well. I mean, hopefully this panel will kick off some thoughts and discussions, but, you know, get online with a friend or call a friend up and start talking about what would you do? You know, what have you been thinking about doing the whole time you've been in lockdown? If only lockdown wasn't happening, what could I be doing? And there'll be lots of thoughts you've had. They'll come back to you. So I just thought that they might be a few thoughts that people might want to consider as you start to sort of transition to getting back out and about.
I think one positive thing that has come out of the shutdown period that we all went through the last couple of years was that a lot of these programs now have the chance to revisit their own programs and make them bigger and better than what they used to be. So I'm certainly finding out with a lot of the sporting programs that there's just more opportunities. There's more hubs that are opening up now across not only Melbourne but into Victoria as well. So that they're trying to make a lot of these wheelchair sport codes more accessible to a lot more people. I know that in badminton they've now set up a female training session on a Saturday and Saturday. So they've got more females that are involved in coming along and playing badminton. So yeah, I think a few of these programs have taken the opportunity just to improve what their programs did originally exist.
And I think that's a really great point, Sal, about kind of grading it. If you don't feel confident about jumping straight in, just to start with your neighbourhood, then go somewhere that's sort of new, that requires a bit more planning. So you're exercising both your ability to plan and arrange yourself, but also your kind of physical stamina and your ability to be open to, you know, all those things that can and probably will happen.
Yeah, and I think circling back to that idea of planning, I think sometimes we can be a bit you know, poo-poo about planning, oh, you know, we can't be spontaneous. But I think from a leisure experience or recreation experience, planning is a really great aspect of it. And you don't just think about the experience as just what you do. Think about it, there's the planning, there's the anticipation, you can be talking to people about what you're going to be doing, there's the participation, the actual doing it, but then there's the recollection, talking about it as well. That's all part of the recreation experience. It's not just getting out and doing it. Think about it as a whole experience, and it just generates a lot more energy in your life than just thinking, oh, I'll just go out and do something. Think about the plan, make that part of the experience, and have fun with that. Think about anticipating it, telling people how excited you are to be doing it, and then talk about what you did. And sometimes what you did is probably more exciting than what you actually did in reality. Thinking of the fishermen or fisher people in our community that always catch a much bigger fish in the story than they did in reality.
And just another thing about planning, just tap into there, Sal, is I agree. The anticipation, I reckon that's probably one of the best bits, you know. Sometimes that's more enjoyable than actually doing it at times. But it's also about, if they have a plan, not being too rigid. So if things don't work out, then, you know, sort of have a bit more of an open mind and just work and just try, you know, if one thing doesn't work out, then maybe I'll do something very similar, but maybe it's a bit differently, or try something else that you can't actually do on the day type thing. So have a bit of flexibility and don't get too caught up on, well, this is what I plan to do, I must do it. You know, just things don't always work out, but, you know, yeah, you can still have fun.
No, Georgina made a suggestion. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, apparently, and it's good for setting and resetting good health and fitness habits. Anyone wants to look into that if you like reading books? And there was a question here by, this is probably a little bit off topic, but John asked, does anyone know where one can get back into motorcycle riding? So it just depends on your disability, John, what your disability is. I know some paraplegics have got their motorbike licenses back, but not riding two-wheelers. They've got like Can-Ams, for example, and three-wheeled motorbikes. So if you want to know more about that, yeah, just like get in touch with AQA and we can get you in touch with those people. Vanessa mentioned here, she's from overseas and it's really hard to find out information about sports and other things like you know, disability services. I think that's yeah, no matter where you go, if you go into a new city or a new country, you have to find out pretty much, you know, what the organisations. And we know who they are, but if anyone's interested in, you know, sports, for example, here in Victoria, you've got DSR, Disability Sport and Recreation. But if you don't know, I mean, just get in touch with organisations like, you know, AQA Victoria or any, there's some Facebook pages, for example, and you can post stuff on there and find quite a lot. Any other comments or questions coming through?
Sorry, AAA Play is worth having a look at too.
Yeah, AAA Play. So that stands for Access All Abilities, I think, something like that. Yeah. So there is, if you know where to look. I mean, yeah, that message is correct. You know, if you're from overseas, it's hard to find. It is because you're in a new place, but. Yeah, if you get in touch with an organisation, hopefully they can point you in the right direction.
This might sound a bit woo-woo, but if you start asking the question, eventually the answer will come to you, and it's talking to other people. You know, local libraries, local council have got lots of information. Talking to other people, finding organisations that support your interest. So, for example, Naz has mentioned AQA a few times, and AQA have a number of networks and support groups that you can join and meet with other people with lived experience or shared experience. So the more you start to reach out and ask that question, it might not come to you immediately, but the more you ask that question and connect with people and places, eventually that answer will come to you.
I wonder if there's any other questions or comments, because if there's not, I think it might be worthwhile to, so all the participants out there, if you're interested, please hang around, because we'll bring you on deck where you'll be able to ask us questions. Again, if you, it may be being recorded, so if you don't want to show your face, maybe turn your camera off, but feel free to talk and ask any questions. So if everyone's happy, do we want to do that?
Sure.
Sure, no problem.
I'll start inviting people to come on as panelists. If you don't want to have your camera on, you can still be a panelist with your camera off. It'll just give you an opportunity to chat. So as you see the request to come on, you can accept it or not. Some people, depending on your setup, might not be able to make it on as a panelist. So it's not a sure thing. We will always find a small group of people that kind of are left as attendees. Can I just say one more thing though, before I start doing that? The old leisure therapist in me is coming out, but I think also one of the other things that's been, I've thought about during the listening to people on the panel, and I think it was something that Shelly said, it's really important to think, don't think of getting out and about in terms of the activity, but what you would like to get out of the activity. What's the experience you would like to have? So is it being with people? Is it getting fitter? Is it trying yourself out? Is it trying something new? Is it doing something that you loved before? Those are the sorts of things. I think that's the place to start, and then you'll find the activity. So in some ways, the activity is not so important as what you get out of it. That's the key. So I think that's another little thing I'd like to share.
Great. Yeah, great answer.
Now, while Sal's doing that, probably won't get a chance later, but I just want to thank every one of you guys for being panelists. So Brian, Emma, Emily, Dave, Ryan, Sal, Shelley, and Susana. Thanks very much. Hopefully everyone out there got a lot out of it. And yeah, appreciate your time.
No final tips? What about the panel's final tips, Naz?
Yeah, all right, let's go final tips. So getting out and about. Yeah, well, what's a message we all want to share? And we'll go with Brian first. If you've got a final tip.
Yeah, I think that it's just a matter of finding sort of what your main interest is, whether it be sport, recreation, whatever the case may be, and then as both Sal and Shelly have said, you know, just find out what that ultimate goal is, whether it's fitness, whether it's being part of a group sport, an individual sport that you go and play, such as golf, tennis, badminton, something like that. Yeah, it just comes back to what your goals are and what you want to get out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Emma, any final tips from you?
I think with whatever you choose to do next, approach it with curiosity and creativity.
Thank you, Emma. Emily?
Yeah, my tip would be have a backup plan for your backup plan, because we live in an unpredictable world. So you end up doing something that makes you happy and you don't get disappointed. Make sure you have backup plans. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Emily. Dave?
Yeah, I'd say that whatever your interest is, even if you don't think you can do it, give it a go. And if you need support, go out and just ask people, and you'll be surprised at who could be out there to give you a hand.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dave. Ryan?
I would say probably similar to Emily's, really. It's like plan for the worst, hope for the best, and try and bring a sense of humour and a sense of adventure with you.
Thanks, Ryan. Sel?
Oh, I think I shared them. I think just think about people, places and spaces near you as a place to start to connect with people and ask the question, and the universe will provide.
Thanks, Sel. Shelly?
Thanks for the woohoo stuff, Sal. It's actually enlightening. Just triple backing up what Sal and others said is actually I go more bluntly. Surprise, surprise, me being blunt. And actually, I tell people it doesn't matter a wazoo what the activity is called. It's all about what's in it. What does it give you? That's the bottom line. So if you then take Emily's and Ryan's tips of have a backup plan to the backup plan, then that fits. Because if things don't go, if the actual activity doesn't work really well, but you've actually focused on other types of outcomes and the people within it, then you're more likely to experience success when something goes wrong. And you know what? Ask yourself one thing. If it's all about the people, if you're in something because you want to connect with people, it doesn't matter if it's basketball, if it's a bunch of bastards in the basketball team, that ain't the activity for you. But if you're just interested in winning games, then go for it.
Exactly. No, thanks, Shelley. Susana?
Well, a lot of those tips that everybody said, I think whatever you do, when you plan something, plan to enjoy. That's what my plan is. And have a good day.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks very much for that.